It's time for the Onyx News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the Onyx News Podcast, Margie K.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Onyx News. I'm your host, Margie K., and we are here every Friday evening at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. This evening, got a great show for you, but I do want to mention a couple of things before we get into it. Be sure to check out this book, How to Research a Haunted House, by myself and my assistant, Violet Wisdom, who is an expert researcher. She owns her own research company. And we decided to start working on this a year ago, and it just came out this month. So do check that out at Amazon. And I think you will not find anything else like it out there. So that's why we did that. Also, in the merch section at unxnetwork.com, we've got these anti-Mothman t-shirts. There's a guaranteed to keep Mothman away. Of course, there is a story behind that. You'll have to see that on the website. And then we do have our 2025 calendar just in time for the holidays. So they make great gifts, and you will find that we put in the weird national days that, of course, listeners to the NX will enjoy and appreciate. So tonight, we venture into the world of Bigfoot, the elusive creature that few have seen and many wonder about its reality. Why is it that despite the thousands of footprints found and cast or photographed, many DNA samples and fleeting sightings recorded, some people are still unconvinced of its existence? My listeners know that I've seen the creature myself, and I find the subject fascinating. This evening, my guest is Ann Ziebell, I think. I'm going to make sure I pronounce that correctly. Ann had an interest in cryptids from an early age. She became a Bigfoot researcher and began leading expeditions in Missouri, then Oklahoma and Arkansas. Mary is the director of the Ozark Mountain Bigfoot Conference held in Springfield, Missouri. Welcome to the program, Ann.
Thank you for having me.
I hope I didn't butcher your last name too much.
No, you're good. You're good.
All right. So, Ann, how did you get interested in the subject of Bigfoot?
Well, like I said, when I was a kid, the library, anything that I could get my hands on. And I did that, as a little kid for a long time. And then as I got older, it was, the TV shows, online, things like that. But in 2019, a lady I worked with was telling me that her husband liked to listen to the police scanner in the evenings, right? And he had heard about a sighting over the police scanner that was just a couple of counties over from where we were at. And I kind of laughed at her, I'm like, yeah, at that point, I didn't really believe they were around here. I thought that they were, Pacific Northwest. And so she's like, you need to go look on the BFRO site. It's okay. I'd been on there before, but it really got into it in depth. Right. And so when I went on and looked, I saw where they were holding expeditions in the state of Missouri. And I thought, oh, okay, that let's try that. And I came home and told my husband I wanted to go Bigfoot hunting, and he looked at me like I'd lost my mind. So yeah, he agreed to it. He agreed to it. And that fall, we headed out on our first BFRO expedition. And we didn't know anybody. We rolled into this just as green as we could be. And we thought, well, we're either going to have a blast because we're just out camping, or it's the worst thing we've ever done. And turned out it was the best thing we'd ever done. So the first night that we were out, we had been several locations that evening, and all the groups converged on one location. Now they all split back into their groups and went different directions. And we headed out with our group, and we walked down this road. And the gentleman leading the group said, "Well, let's step off here. Let's just go out here, maybe find a place, sit down, just listen for a while." Okay, So we did. We kind of sat around in this circle, and we're sitting there. And I remember there was a girl sitting to my left, and I'm looking at her. She's like camo head to toe, right? And she pulled that hood down over her head and proceeded to go to sleep. And I thought, if I didn't know she was sitting there, I would walk right past her. That's just how well she blended into the surroundings.
Mm.
And there were 10 of us in this group. And the gentlemen, some of them were talking about who was sitting where, and discussion was going on. Wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to it because I was just completely enamored with the whole thing of the camo. I mean, you see people in camo all the time, the hunters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there and I'd look away and I'd look back and think, I really would not be able to see this woman. I was just really taken with that. And about that point in time, part of the group jumps up and rushes us in opposite direction. So all of us at that point are standing looking to see what is going on. And so some of the gentlemen in the group, I think there was 3 of them, had decided at this point that there were 11 of us sitting there, not 10. And they jumped up and moved toward the subject that they believed wasn't part of us, right?
Okay.
So at that point, we're all standing there listening to them talk about it. And my husband, myself, and there was a younger girl standing to my side. And we started to hear this loud kind of slapping behind us. And so I turned around and I took, I don't know, about 5 steps in that direction to get a better view. And at that point in time, I could see a very large figure step out from behind a tree, estimate about maybe 25 yards. Now, this was a night where there was a full moon and it was very light out, and I could see no details because the face was shaded because the moon was directly overhead. But I could tell that it was very large, very broad, and it stepped out into view. It had no problem making itself known.
Wow. That's
so
amazing.
At that point, my husband is getting the gentleman that's leading the group. And he's so worked up over what happened previous, just before that we never could get him to really focus in, so we could show him what we were seeing. And about that point in time, there was another one to the left of that one that started to make itself known. It was moving around. You couldn't see it, but you could hear it. And at that point, the gentleman that was leading the expedition was convinced we were being surrounded and we were going to leave the woods. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to stay where I was at because that's what we paid for, right?
Exactly.
And I was basically told that if I didn't come willingly, I would be drug out of the woods because we were leaving. So begrudgingly, I left the woods. Well, these things followed us out. You could hear them the whole time. We were being followed out. We got back out to the road, and there was a slight incline that we had to start to go up. And as we're getting to the top of the incline, some of the other groups were already back. And there was a person from one of the other groups, and they were therming us and down the hill. And they said, "You all left somebody." And we kind of giggled and went, "Yeah, we've been through the numbers game tonight. No, we didn't leave anybody down there." And so they started really paying attention to it, making note of where it was at. And one of the taller gentlemen went back down. They did a size comparison, and what was standing in the road was roughly 8 feet tall.
Okay. So not a human.
Not a human. So that was the first night I ever went on an expedition. I had a Class A sighting, It was a full moon, the trifecta of all things, right? And,
That's amazing because a lot of people go out on these expeditions for weeks or months before something occurs. And what's amazing to me is that you had several groups out there at the same time.
yes.
So obviously, this group of Sasquatch knew you were all there.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody's sneaking up on those guys. They
No.
know. And do you think that their intention was to scare you off, get you out of their territory?
I think what was going on, because the one that was with us was smaller. When the guys were talking about it after we got back to camp, it was smaller. It wasn't that big. So I think it was a young one. And I think once, it was not, we noticed it, and they're up and moving and everything. I think Mama stepped out to draw our attention to her so that it could leave. Now, the whole time,
Ah,
I was never scared. I never felt threatened, nothing like that. Because and I say she because I believe it was a female, I believe it was a female. She wasn't aggressive. She just made sure we could see her standing there. And I say I think I was actually the only one that really saw her. But yeah, she had no problem stepping out from a tree, standing in full view, stepping to the other side of the tree and standing in full view for us to see, And I think it was just a diversion, baby got too close, got caught. So Mom made a diversion so that we would pay attention to her and it could get away without anybody going after it, seeing where it went, that type of thing.
is that the point where the juvenile left?
It had left before we ever saw her, because
Okay.
this area, so we went back the next day into this area in the daylight, and there was a small berm that ran around about half of it, and then there was a very large down tree. And when you stood on the berm and looked where we had been sitting, that whole area was completely mashed down. There were no saplings, nothing. It was like a nice bedding area. And if you turned around and looked the other way, there were saplings everywhere. So I think this is an area where they bedded down because it was hidden from the road, was hidden from all kinds of areas, and you wouldn't be able to walk up on it without them hearing you. And there was that small berm on one side that, they could just roll over. And if you weren't standing on it, you wouldn't see them. And there was water right there. We found a track and a mud hole up there. So I think we just happened to walk into a place, where they slept. And we don't know if the baby was there when we walked in or if it kind of fell in and walked in with us. But yeah,
That's pretty amazing that you had that experience with this juvenile coming into your group. Probably obviously curious about who you were and not afraid of you.
No, I don't think it was at all.
No.
When we made a move toward it, though, when the gentleman did make a move toward it, it did leave then, but no, it was right there with us. It was probably within 5 feet of a couple of different people. That's how
Wow.
close it was to us.
That's pretty awesome. What about the history of the area that we're talking about, the Missouri Ozarks, as far as Bigfoot is concerned?
Well, there's a couple of different legends, if you want to call them that. They're more over in the eastern part of the state. There's what they call Blue Man over there. And we're not really sure exactly how he got that name, because there's a couple of there was a soldier from the Civil War that moved into that area. And I believe his name was Blue Saul is what they called him. And he was the one that originally saw the Bigfoot that he talked about all the time. Now, they got to where they called it Blue Man. And they don't know if that became from Saul because he was Blue Saul, or another story that has been told is that it was so black it had a blue sheen to it. So those are a couple. Yeah, you hear those. And then of course you've got Momo, which is a little farther north. Um, and that's just another story of Bigfoot. But Missouri doesn't get all the credit it should because we actually have a lot more sightings than we're given credit for. There's a lot more activity here than people really know. But the locals just don't talk about it.
Well, the state of Missouri is mostly rural and wooded,
Hmm.
woods, and we've got the Mark Twain National Forest. There are lakes everywhere, rivers, big rivers, Mississippi, Missouri, but then lots of small rivers and streams going throughout the entire state. And of course, we're also known as the cave state here.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
there's habitat
Yes.
available. It's just the perfect place. And of course, there's lots of prey
Oh yeah.
available, a food
Yes.
source.
Yes.
Perfect place for anything big that wants to live here and
Yeah.
unnoticed for the most
Exactly.
part.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mark Twain has a lot of reports out of it. It really does. And
Mhm.
it's just that perfect storm for them. There's cover, there's water, there's prey. So why
Mhm.
wouldn't they be in there?
We've got a question from Chad. Are there any UFO, UAP reports along with your Bigfoot sightings?
Um, well, in the areas over in the eastern part of the state, there are more of that. I mean, of course, Piedmont's over there, and that's, the UFO capital. Um, so that part of the state just seems to be a little more active with Bigfoot sightings and UFO things that go on over there. Um, I don't get into the UFOs, so I don't know that much as far as reports on them. Um, Typically, I mean, we occasionally, because I am a BFRO investigator, and we do uh, sometimes get things that go along with it. People have seen odd things, but that's not the norm.
Okay. Um, just for the heck of it, for people who don't know about Momo, can you give us a quick synopsis of that, the history?
Well, let's see if I remember correctly. I believe that Momo started either in the late 60s or 70s, and there was a rash of sightings. Um, in I'm trying to remember right off the top of my head. I can't remember the town. But like you said, small town, rural area, and people were seeing this large, hairy figure, in different areas along the river, things like that. And I think it was when it first started, like I said, in the late 60s, early 70s, something like that. I think there had been some reports earlier, just like most of the state, there are reports for years and years and years, but there was just a big rash of them in that area. And so they called it Momo, which was Missouri Monster,
Yeah.
is how
Yeah.
that name came about.
Question from Steve Smith. Did you experience any rock throwing while you were doing any of your expeditions?
Uh, I have never had rocks thrown at me per se. We had one night there was just like three of us out, and we were thinking whatever was being thrown was either teeny, teeny, tiny, like pebbles, or it was acorns. And we're not
Okay.
really sure because whatever it was just very, very small. I do know some people that have had the rocks thrown at them. But luckily I've never had any rocks chunked at me.
I don't think I would appreciate that.
Well,
Um,
as long as they're small and they don't hit me, we're
mhm.
good.
I I understand that in most cases where rocks are thrown, they're nearby, they're at a person's feet, but they rarely get actually struck by the
Yes.
rocks. Do you think
Yeah.
that's more of a warning? You need to leave the area. This is my space type of thing.
I don't necessarily think it's a warning. I think they're playing with you because first of all, if it was a warning, they could smack you with that rock and send you out of there real quick. Most of the time, they're throwing stuff close to you, around you, that kind of stuff. Not necessarily hitting you. It's just kind of messing with you, just throwing stuff out of the woods at you.
So they're letting you know that they're there. And so in any of your expeditions, did anybody get good photos of Sasquatch?
Well, that would be the $1 million photo now, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It is just really hard. And, a lot of people that aren't out there in boots on the ground will say, well, why don't you have a good photo? Well, I'll tell you what, when you're out there, even though you expect it and something does happen, that camera is the last thing you think about pulling out.
Right.
Especially if you interpret it as an aggressive thing, which I never have. But even when something happens, it catches you off guard. Even when you're out there looking for it, it catches you off guard. It happens so fast that by the time you think to grab that camera, it's gone. So,
that's the way it is with UFO sightings too. You're so shocked by what you're looking at that is the last thing you're thinking of, even if you have your phone in your hand.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done it myself. I've seen something amazing, stood there, and I'm thinking, I'm supposed to be the professional here, and I don't think about it until it's like 2 minutes later and the thing is gone.
Yes,
so.
Exactly. You're kind of shocked, when something like that happens, even though, you're looking for it. And when it happens, you're just like, oh, wait, I'm supposed to be doing something here.
Like, wait, I've got to show someone this. I've got to have proof.
Right.
What am I going to do? Of course, now everybody says everything is CGI.
It's
everything's
fake.
Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly. We have, it's not a photo. It's a therm. It's Richard Stewart Taylor. He goes out. He's BFRO, and he goes with us. And one night there was a group of us, and we were sitting on a gravel bar, and we were in an area where they had thermed these before. So we were all sitting on the gravel bar, and we were looking across the river up into the bluffs, because there's some caves in there and there's some little places. And a few years ago, they had thermed them in there all evening. So we're sitting there, and the first thing that happened was we had lights come up that we can't, they were in the trees and everything else. Somebody's like, well, it's the stars coming up. No, we watched the stars come up. These did not move like stars coming up. So we had these lights we'd been watching for quite a while, and nothing else was going on a whole lot. And Richard got up and started to move around a little bit. And I noticed he was just standing in one spot, and he had the therm going. And I finally kind of turned around, looked at him, and he just kind of grinned, and I knew he had something. And so he started to move toward it, and he has on his therm, he's got like the shoulder, the arm, you see it going through the bushes. I mean, you can tell it's upright and it's walking away.
Oh, wow.
And and it was about 20 feet behind us that night. It had managed to get that close to us. It was all the way up to where the foliage stopped, and then the gravel bar started. So it was about 20 feet from us, and we never heard it. We didn't know it had got there. Yeah.
They are masters at moving around in the woods without anybody hearing a sound, which is amazing bizarre, considering how much they weigh.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's how it's that, it's how their feet are constructed. They're so large. And I think that padding on their feet allows them to move in such a manner that they make no noise. Even on those crunchy leaves, it's just, I mean, you hear them if they want you to hear them. Otherwise, you won't know they're there.
Right. Well, and they certainly have been known for making crashing sounds and tearing trees apart. and shaking trees. I've seen some of the video with this big trees shaking that no human could do.
Right.
Right. Obviously they're wanting to get attention or want you to know they're there, and probably mad that you're in their space or something.
Right. When they're doing something like that, now that's a little more aggressive. That's probably one of those you just want to, pack your stuff and be on your way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are up on a 3-minute break, and we'll be back right after these messages.
The UNX Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full-spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the UNX Network website at unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com.
Debbie Ziegelmeyer is an experienced diver, dive trainer, and UFO investigator who has researched sites around the world that have water-related UFO activity. We now know that even the Pentagon admits that there are unknown objects in the skies and underwater around the world. Debbie compiled an amazing book to catalog many of these sightings. The Alien Colonization of Earth's Waterways, a reference guide to UFO, USO, water-related activity, has received rave reviews by UFO researchers and the public. The book is available at Amazon.com.
While most near-death experiencers return to this plane of existence with alluring tales of their time spent in the presence of the divine, what happens when one crosses the veil into the afterlife, into the void? In the new book, Dying to Meet Them, Mindy Toutfest describes her journey to the afterlife after a devastating aneurysm, how a strange turn of events would lead her to spiritual growth, divine healing, UFO experiences, and a greater understanding of the universe. Get your copy of Dying to Meet Them today at Amazon.com or visit unxmedia.com for more information on this book and more amazing selections from UNX Media Publishing at unxmedia.com.
And welcome back to UNX News. I'm your host, Margie Kay, and my guest this evening is Mary Ann Ziebell. She is a Bigfoot researcher, and she is also the director of the Ozark Mountain Bigfoot Conference. And while we I mentioned that, why don't we talk about that a little bit? How long have you been doing the conference?
This year was our 3rd year. The first year we did it, it was just a 1-day event. It was very small. We have now branched out to not only do we do a conference, a 1-day conference, but we also go camp out on private property afterward and spend a few days out in the woods on a property that this gentleman allows us to come out to that has had a lot of activity. So we kind of set ourselves apart a little bit because that's not your typical Bigfoot conference. And it's like, as many as there are out there now, you want to be different, and being able to take people out and hopefully, have an experience is the ultimate thing. So we have, we do that. We take them out, we camp. It is primitive camping, but, we have water, we bring porta potties in, and then I have some ladies that cook for us. So we feed you breakfast and dinner. We teach classes when we're out there. We go out on night hikes. We try to hit all the bases.
Wow, that sounds like quite an experience. Did you have any luck this year?
We did. We did. The area, so the first year that we camped, we actually had one come through the very last night. We had a storm blow through that tore up our cook tent. And so after everything had kind of calmed down and everybody got in their tents, one of the ladies decided she was going to get in her car and sleep and not in her tent. And she woke up around 3:30 in the morning she said it sounded like something was tapping on her car. And so she kind of opened her eyes and she's looking around. She happened to be parked next to my husband and I's tent. And behind our tent, she could see this figure standing behind our tent.
Oh my.
Yes. Well, I'm passed out. I'm so sound asleep at this point because I've put on a conference. I've had a camp out.
Yeah.
And my husband's laying there and he can hear it. And my husband is the resident skeptic. He's still not had a full-on sighting. He says, I know there's something out there. I just don't know what it is because of things that have happened. But he could hear it walking around, messing around behind the tent. Well, when we got up the next morning and we started hearing people, that thing had walked all the way around our camp area.
Oh,
So I have a
wow.
really good friend, Shane Carpenter. He tracks. And so we got him up and we're like, okay, you need to come out here. We think we have something. So he got to looking and he found in the tall grass compression tracks all the way around the campground. It had circled all the way around. It had been down in between our porta potties. It had just been all over. It actually walked under somebody's canopy and was messing with things on their table. So yeah, we had quite the visitor that first time around.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yes.
This year, one of the nights, we had taken a group and went up the hill behind this gentleman's house. And about the time we got to the top of the hill, part of the people in the back of the group were growled at. And then when we got on top of the hill, we got some thermal hits. So we've had quite a few things. We had some vocalization this year that we normally don't get out there. And they like to come in and mess around that area because there's some old farm equipment there. And you will hear in the middle of the night, it sounds like metal hitting metal, just like something tapping on it. And that happens occasionally. Yeah, just there's some interesting things that go on this property. So
some of the things that you just discussed sound like something that's got some intelligence.
Yes.
And also, opposable thumbs.
Yes.
Yeah. So just hearing things like that or seeing the evidence left behind the next day, you realize just an animal, a wolf or a raccoon or a bear or something is not going to do those particular things.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's like, we even walk the road out there sometimes. And this year we had stuff thrown at us and it was landing on different sides of the road and things like that. And it's like, okay, just as well as I do, there's not an animal out there that throws things.
Right. And misses you by 2 feet. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So I've got a question. Is there any trail cam evidence of Bigfoot?
So from what I understand, there are in private, people have pictures of them on trail cams. It does exist, but most of them won't show you because they, first of all, don't want people all over their property. Right. Or they don't want to be harassed about it or made fun of. But there are trail cam pictures that are good.
I've seen a couple myself, but like you said, they don't want it made public.
Exactly.
James wants to know, have you explored North Missouri sightings and reports?
Actually, we have private property that we're working on up there, up North Missouri. And the gentleman has lived on the property for like 36 years, and he has seen them 3 times. His wife's seen them. We actually went up there this fall and camped out and got a lot of knocking and different things like that. So we have recorders up there right now. We've turned it into a recording project at this point to just see what we can come up with up there.
Yeah, it's I've taken reports from all over the state, every corner, but there is I believe a large clan northwest. There are some in other places, but there's a particular private property. This man owns a lot of acreage, and he has been actually in contact. He's developed a relationship with this group, and they will come around him almost every night. The females in the group and the juveniles will come around, and then the males appear, but they stand back. But they've made their presence known, and so they have developed a relationship with this person.
Right.
Do you have any other cases where that is the case, where the owner, the landowner, has been there for a while, and they actually develop a relationship, and they can get very close to them?
I do not. I mean, I've heard people say that, but currently I don't have anything like that. Just, it's kind of hard to get those sometimes, because those people also don't necessarily want everybody to know, what's going on their property.
True. And people who live in rural areas seem to be more tight-lipped than people in cities for some reason. I don't know what it is, but
yes,
yeah, it's the same thing with any UFO sightings, crop circles, Bigfoot, whatever. They don't want strangers on their property. They don't want people trespassing, and that sort of thing would happen.
Yes,
if anybody knew exactly where it was, it would definitely happen, because people can't control themselves. They just have to know.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's like we don't tell people where we go for our conference camp out, because that poor gentleman would just be inundated if we did. And that's the same thing like with the BFRO. We make them sign non-disclosures because, people would be all over the places if we didn't.
Exactly. Carl is asking about Bigfoot language. We just, at the X-Con, we had Scott Nelson as our keynote speaker, and he spoke about how he believes Sasquatch has a language. What do you think about that? Do they talk to each other?
Well, I think they have to. If we just use common sense, how else would they communicate? They have to have some kind of language. Maybe they use some hand signs. Maybe, what we call tree knocks. Maybe their mouth pops, that kind of stuff. I mean, I think that's what's so wrong with so many of these. And I'm just going to cover the whole board here. Anything that it's a cryptid, people are not using critical thinking and common sense.
Right.
Some things, I guess, that you can get away with it a little bit more, but it's like, if we just use a little bit of common sense in some of these cases, it's like they obviously have to have a way to communicate. Other animals do. They make noises. So if this thing is as smart as we think it is, it should have some form of language. Only makes sense to me.
Me too. I agree. Got a few photos you sent me. Let's just show these and have you explain what we're looking at.
This was sent to me by a gentleman in the the southwest corner of Missouri. Don't have a lot of information on it, because sometimes they send you stuff and that's it. They're done. They don't want to communicate anymore. This was found in his field. He's a farmer. Okay. So yeah, he sent a couple of pictures like that. And
well, that looks like a pretty big footprint. I think too big for human.
Well, and you see how deep it is too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's something very heavy.
Yes.
I bet he had more footprints there he didn't share with you.
Oh, probably.
What do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
You were lucky to get that.
Yes.
Okay.
Now
Wow,
that
some
came
eye
from the
shine.
same, yeah, that came from the same gentleman. You can tell he's got a cornfield, right? And that's standing out there in his cornfield.
Yeah, and it's pretty high, pretty
Yeah.
tall up there.
Yeah.
That's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
What was the story behind it? Did he know something was there and he took a picture, or was
He
that from his
just,
trail cam?
he, like I said, didn't get a lot of information from this guy. He sent the tracks, this, and said, this is what's going on. And that was it,
Oh, well,
and
you're supposed to decipher. I know, I get the same
yeah,
thing sometimes.
yeah, yeah.
It's like, look at the picture, and that's the report.
Right.
Please tell me
Exactly.
a little bit more. Okay.
Right, exactly.
And then we've got this one. What are we looking at here?
Well, that was a whole ordeal in itself. There's a little video that goes with this. And back last spring, we were out in an area, and there was a whole group of us, but there was like 3 of us that had kind of hung back, and 2 of us kept hearing something, right? And we're telling the guy with us, we hear something over here. And so he's therming, and there's this little video, and this figure right here comes up out of the creek on all 4s. It comes up, and you see it stand up next to a tree. It grabs a hold of the tree. It's looking around the tree, both sides, and we get this image. And he was losing his mind because we thought we had it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we get in the vehicles and we head back to camp. We can't get back to camp fast enough. And we jump out of our vehicles. I've got my laptop. He's got his stuff. We put it in. We're watching it because I didn't get to see it till I got back to camp. And I'm like, oh my, okay, there we go. Right. So we didn't release it. He has a friend that's a producer in Hollywood, and he went through it. There was like 45 seconds of that. He went through it, and he found 3 frames where you can see the ears and the snout. It was a bear. I just kept asking him, are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of disappointing, but you do have to do your due diligence and find out what it really is.
Exactly. Because we could have put that out and said, here it is. We've got it. And somebody would have done what we did and said, no, it's a bear. So it's,
Yeah.
we have to fact check ourselves,
Oh yeah. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing any type of investigation, whether it's paranormal or Bigfoot or whatever, you gotta deep dive and debunk everything that you possibly can, or no one will take you seriously.
Exactly.
So that just proves right there that you're serious about what you're doing.
And that's, you have to. And I mean, I try to, any reports I get, because back in September, I got a report of a gentleman shooting a Bigfoot. And it took me forever to get him on the phone. And we even set up to go meet him, and he didn't show up. I mean, listening to him on the phone, it was a really good story. And I really wanted to get in there and see what was going on. But he blew us off, get a text or a few days later, oh, I had COVID, kind of thing. But if I hadn't went and checked, it would have turned out to have been something. So you have to check them all, whether you,
yeah,
you just do. That's just part of it.
Carl wants to know, do you do investigations year round or just in conjunction with the conference?
Well, I don't like to be out there when it's really cold or really hot. So we do a lot of ours in the spring and fall. Like this year, I have gotten permission to go into Oklahoma and Arkansas with the BFRO. So we're doing a Missouri expedition in the spring, which is in April. And then we're going to Oklahoma in May. We're not going to be doing anything too much during the summer. And then in September, we're going to probably be going into Arkansas. And then in October, the first weekend in October is going to be the conference and my personal expedition. And then there'll be another expedition probably the end of October for Missouri. So
okay.
We're trying to do these more and more and more. And, but it seems to be that the spring and the fall is when they're most active. So that's when we try to go out.
Okay. And then here's the graphic from your conference from this year,
Yes.
which I attended and was very good, by the way.
Thank you.
This was an excellent lineup of experts that, wow, they showed some amazing photographic evidence and video. And so what have you got in planned for this year?
Well, we're going back to the same place we were at. I was able to acquire that again. So we're going to go back there. A couple, well, probably 3 of the gentlemen that were there last year will be back this year. Wayne Thros, he spoke at the camp out and not at the conference. And this year, I think he's going to speak at the conference. And Shane Carpenter is always there. He has a documentary out called Into the 400. And he and I kind of got together a few years ago when I did the first one, and we hit it off. We've become really good buddies, and he helps me out a lot. We do things together. We go out, check things out. I'm always sending him stuff. What do you think about this? Have you heard of this? You know, different things like that. So we kind of try to work together a little bit. And he's going to be a regular there as long as he wants to be a regular, because he is working on another documentary and he has a film crew following him around, and they have been at our conference all 3 years. So when that comes out, we're going to be on a documentary.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. But I haven't done a whole lot with it yet. You know, probably first of the year is when we'll start announcing some more stuff. I mean, we have the date, that type of thing. Date? It's October the 4th. It's a Saturday.
Okay.
And that'll be the day of the conference. We may be doing like a VIP night this time, and then we'll definitely have our camp out, which always happens immediately after the conference and through usually Wednesday.
Okay. So you just head out right after the conference for the camp out.
Yeah, we tell everybody. My husband usually goes out and sets up, you know, him and the cook ladies go out, set stuff up, and we have ours set up, and we try to get out there and everybody kind of gets their stuff thrown together and we feed them. And the first night is just kind of everybody sits down and relaxes and just gets to know each other type deal. You know, we don't really try to do anything that first night other than just visit with each other. And then after that, we get out and start to do things the next few days.
So if somebody's interested in the conference or any of your expeditions or the one right after this next conference, how do they get in touch with you or register?
If it's anything to do with the conference, it's we have a Facebook page, and it's Ozark Mountain Bigfoot and Bigfoot Conference. And you can reach out to me on that page, and I can answer any of your questions, help you with anything. We can do that. If you're interested in any of the BFRO expeditions, you have to go on to bfro.net, and the expeditions for the states are on there. I don't believe the Arkansas one is up yet. I have to give them the dates for that. And then that one will be up. But definitely the spring Missouri expedition is up, and the spring Oklahoma expedition is up.
Okay. Got another question in chat. We've got a few more minutes. Have any of your members had psychic encounters with Bigfoot?
I have a couple of people that say that they have experienced mind speak. And, you know, that's one of those things that's, you know, some people are very open to that. And then there are people who are like, nope, that doesn't happen, you know. But I mean, I do know people that have said they've had that happen. So,
yeah. We can talk about that later. I've had a few experiences myself.
Right.
And that's one of the main reasons I'm interested in the subject. I mean, I always believed that there was something from the time I was a kid, and was interested in it, but I kind of went down a different path doing paranormal investigations and UFO investigations. And then I happened to run into a situation where some people were trying to figure out, they were doing a Sasquatch investigation where their son had seen one, and then UFOs showed up. So, I thought, okay, there's a connection here. I've got to dig into this further. But
yeah, I haven't
yeah.
really had too much of the UFO, but we've had orbs happen when we're out. Now, not necessarily like, oh, I saw Bigfoot and then I saw an orb. No, we were out on a Bigfoot expedition and have had orbs. I've had that happen at least two or three different times, completely different locations. We've had that kind of stuff happen.
That's something that's fascinating to me. I've taken so many reports of orbs, balls of light, and they seem to be, in most cases, and you can tell me if this happened to you, or if this is what you witnessed, they're luminous, but they don't shine a light.
Correct.
They're like self-luminous. Is that what you experienced?
Yes. Yeah, because the first time that they happened when we were out Bigfooting, we, had walked off trail again and sat down in the woods. And my husband and I are kind of off to ourselves. And they popped up at my feet. There were like three of them, 3 or 4, about the size of a ping pong ball, right? And they're milling around at my feet because I'm sitting down. He's standing next to me and he's looking at me like, oh my God. And I'm just kind of giggling at him. I'm like, yeah, you're seeing them. And they were like pastel, right? And they were, they're just little lights, just right there, really close to the ground. And as quick as they were there, they were gone, And then there was another time we were actually in Kentucky on an expedition, and we were down the path from a private family cemetery. And we had split into 2 groups. Both of the groups were finally at the end. We were sitting there discussing walking back, and we see this light coming down the path. And we're like, oh my gosh, somebody must be coming. Something must have happened. Somebody's coming to get us, because it looked like somebody's headlamp. It's bobbing and moving, and you can see it. And there was a nice dip before you came up and got to where we were at. And it went in the dip, and we never saw it again. We even went and looked for it because we all saw it, all of us. And we're like, where did that go? Don't know. And the night that we were sitting on the riverbank, there were lights in the trees up on the cliffs above us. And they were milling around. And like you said, they're light, but they don't put out light.
Yeah. Yeah. It's bizarre. I've seen them many times myself and don't have any explanation for that. That's probably one of the weirdest things in existence. So one last question. Have you tried leaving food out for Bigfoot, or in fact, gifting is what it's called, gifting?
Right. I do not like to leave food out because there are too many accounts of aggressive behavior or poor behavior when you stop doing that. If you're going to leave things out, you should leave shiny things, little toys, things like that, because it's kind of like any other wildlife. You shouldn't be feeding it, not on a regular basis. And I've just heard too many people talk about they feed, and then when they stop, they go back into that area and the area is torn apart, or they go back in and they're not met with friendly, like before. So I really kind of discourage the feeding aspect of it. If you want a gift, that's fine, but go to the dollar store and buy bright little toys, or leave rocks or marbles or things like that. Because you're not feeding it and you don't cause a problem that way.
That is super good advice. We are unfortunately out of time for today. I could talk to you for another 4 hours easily. But thank you so much, Marianne. It's been great.
Thank you.
And you're really, truly an expert on the subject. And I've enjoyed having you this evening. So I appreciate that.
I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to the conference next year, and I know it'll be just as good as it was this year, or if not better.
Oh, I hope it's better.
So looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you.
Okay. Wow. Bigfoot. Yes, this is a subject I don't talk about enough on this program. So I'll try to get better and do more of that, because it certainly is something that I'm very, very interested in myself. And wow, we are going to, unfortunately, that's the end of the show. So I'll see you here again next Friday.